The topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
Are you ready to take a journey? Let's connect with the healers of the world. It's that time. It's time for the language of healing on W4WN Radio and Talk4 TV. Now here's your host, Dr. Nicole Fortin. Well, it's actually not Dr. Nicole Fortin, as you cannot tell, but this is the co-host, the Pipe Man, and I think Nicole Fortin is coming right now. She was like seconds off. I just told him I'm not you. Okay, so now you can take over. Can you hear us, Dr. Nicole? Uh-oh, she can't hear us, Rebel. Can you help her through that? See, Dr. Nicole Fortin is currently at a very cool conference. Oh, sir, she interrupts me to speak. She doesn't speak when told to speak. She just interrupts me. I was just telling them you're doing this great conference and we couldn't hear you because, you know, you had your mic muted because of the conference, so they couldn't hear you or something like that. And I also told them in the beginning of the show when it says, and here's your host, Dr. Nicole Fortin. I said, and this is not Dr. Nicole Fortin, as if you can't tell. This is the co-host, Pipe Man. And then
this is why we have the co-host.
And then you kind of arrived. You know, like I think you did it on purpose. I think you wanted to see what would happen if I was left to my own devices.
Well, I mean, I think you know quite well what you're doing, but I'm thankful to have you here.
I'm not sure.
It was a happy surprise, I guess. You know what? Honestly, I thought like I got my timing all wrong. I'm in another universe here. You know, when you're in a conference or workshop or, you know, like time is just different. You're in a learning realm and
it depends on who you are. Okay. Speaking of the still thing, there's those of us that are very good at being still. So yes, they lose themselves in the time. And then there's other people that are sitting still at a conference looking at their watch every 10 seconds to see if that session's over yet so they can go out and do whatever they're going to do.
Right. Yes. Well, I'm a little bit of both people. I was looking and then suddenly I'm here, but I'm here. How are you? How are you?
Well, I always find it interesting, or did find it interesting when I was part of that group. I'm not part of the group anymore, so I can't speak on it. But every health and wellness event I ever did, there were more people outside smoking than any other event I ever did. And it always used to blow my mind. I'm like, here we are at a health and wellness conference, and people are sneaking outside to have a cigarette, including me.
Right.
What is that?
You know, smoking can be good for your brain. I think it helps. I mean, I don't know. There's the pros and cons of everything there, but it is an interesting, not saying that just because you're in health and wellness that you're a perfect individual either. You know,
well, that's what blows my mind too. How many
mechanisms?
Yeah, that's what blows my mind too. How many doctors and nurses smoke, knowing how bad it is, and then they lecture you, and then they go outside and have a cigarette.
Oh yeah, working in the hospitals in China. Okay, you get like, that's what every 20, 40 minutes the doctor's like, "Hey, gotta go." He like takes his jacket off and just gets out. I don't even know if they go outside. They just step outside of the room. And then they're back, but they're smoking everywhere in China.
So what if they're like in the middle of a procedure? They just stop to have a cigarette?
You know,
they can't wait till the procedure's over?
That's a good question. I don't actually know about the surgeons. I imagine they're not doing that, but
there's the perk of being a surgeon. Okay. You work a regular job. You're lucky if you get 2 breaks a day where you can have a cigarette. But if you're a surgeon, you're just like, hey, nurse, just clamp this here. Keep it clamped. I'll be right back.
Yeah, or they get the clamps to, like, the nurse is now the designated, distributor of the puffs.
Well, yeah, while they're clamping, the nurse is, like, giving them the cigarette to
Y
puff on while they're clamping.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need
And
hands for that, right?
has a doctor ever dropped a cigarette butt inside and then
Mm.
sewed the person back up? Because there's things like
Oh,
that have happened, actually, not cigarette butts, but there's been stuff that's been, like, they seal the body back up and there's something in there, whether it be
yeah,
a bug or a, you know,
a
uh
forcep, instrument,
yeah.
gauze. Yeah, I've actually
Or
seen that in
chip if
practice.
you're that type of person that thinks that's what they do, like,
There you go.
while while you're posting on your, chipped phone that they need to put a chip in you, but they don't because 'cause you're chipping yourself. But
Just
that's what
chipping
keeps
away.
so, let's talk about what's really going on today.
I
What
know.
is
Yeah,
this
thank you.
still point thing?
Okay, so there's a few reasons or what still point means to me. Um, we're just talk like I said, I'm kind of on my early lunch break from a course that I'm taking. So, and it's around work that's called craniosacral manipulation. So it's like we're feeling the movement of the bone structure. So there, it's like it is a term, a technical term. What are you doing? This is
I was
scratching up.
moving my bones while you were saying that.
Okay. Yeah, so we're feeling for like what they call the flexion and extension of it's the movement of the bones, the motility, and stillness. Still point is one of those movements as well. So it's just, but really, I was feeling a bit tired this week, and I've been doing a lot of movement. There's been a lot of action. It's like there's a lot of expansion, even in the springtime, the longer daylight. We're stretching into summer, and I felt just a little tired. Like I wanted a bit of a pause, like a little break, but not to just stop everything, just like a bit of, you know, there's I think naturally with life,
Can
we
you show that
flex and
description
extend.
to us again, please?
Yeah. This is like a deflating, like expand and contract. It's a natural movement of life. So stillness or the pause, I think, is like a valuable piece of the puzzle. What does stillness mean to you?
You know, it's funny you
Or
should
still
ask
point?
that and that we're
Still
having
point.
this now, because
Yeah.
somebody asked me something yesterday, just yesterday, it's so ironic. You know, they're a healer, they're a sound healer, and, you know, asking about certain things, it was that, that typical answer of somebody that is a healer sometimes where it was like, what was the question? I gotta think of the question. It was like, what do you do to relax? And my answer to that was, wouldn't the first question be, do you need to relax? See, and my point there is I think different things are beneficial for different people for different reasons. So, you know, for some people, as an example, one of my things I said back was, for instance, I do yoga because I know it's good for me and it's good exercise. Do I do yoga to relax like most people think it's relaxing? I don't think yoga is relaxing to me at all in the least bit. The whole time I'm doing it, I'm watching my watch. I'm hoping that the hour's over or whatever. The whole time I'm doing it, I'm feeling like, bored. And the whole time I'm doing it also, is and here's a perfect example of then your mind really starts running wild. So me relaxing would be keeping my mind busy, not still, because when my mind is still, that's not relaxing at all because some of the things you think about are what stress you out. So like if I'm stressed out and I need a pause, a still, to me, a still or a pause is to bury myself into something so that my focus is thoroughly on that, that I don't think about the other things that need me to relax, you know, if that makes sense to
Mhm.
you. And it's funny you're
Yeah.
making expressions about the yoga, and I mean that's probably surprising to a lot of people, but I think different people are different ways. Now, do I still do it? Do I still believe in it? Yes, but not for the same reasons. Not for even meditation for me is not relaxing. Now, let me rephrase that. There are times it is, depending on what it is. Like if I get pissed off at somebody, I will walk away and I will do my own form of meditation to relax, and that kind of relaxing, like to come off the heated moment. That does work for me. But if you ask me to sit in a room for an hour and just meditate, you might need a straitjacket for me because it would drive me nuts, and it would be like the longest hour ever. Does that mean I don't believe in meditation? I absolutely 100% do believe in meditation. And here brings me to another point. So, the younger generation nowadays, like when I was younger, if you need to relax, somebody would tell you to relax. But then they would give you things to do to relax, but it's like, just relax. You tell the younger generation that, and they lose their marbles, man. You can't just relax. Okay. So, somebody very near and dear to me that was studying for yoga instruction and to be a certified yoga instructor said that exact comment to me. And my exact answer was, isn't that the whole point of all the meditation and yoga that you're training for? Isn't that so you have coping skills to relax? And I think the younger generation doesn't think that way, whereas I do think that way. I think there are things to do to relax. And one of the things to do to relax is to do a pause.
Hmm. Yeah, that's correct. Because, see, I wouldn't say by definition that meditation equals relaxation. I wouldn't say that's the purpose of it in my
Not the
line of
purpose, but it
work.
is one of the
It's a like
reasons
a
people
by
do it.
like a maybe a by yeah, it's maybe what people like think about what it does have a benefit of it. But I believe that the purpose of that or taking the pause or like you say, you actually prefer to focus on something else. It's
Which
about
is a form of a
taking
pause.
it's about yeah, it's about taking your attention off of something that maybe you're like fixated on or really focused on and giving it's like when an athlete trains for a marathon, they're not just running, they're cross training, like they're training in, cycling or weights or swimming or something because you have to give your body a bit of a mm, like I don't know, diversity or you have to, how would I
Well, see
say it?
well,
Like
see, that's what I mean.
challenge it in other ways.
Well, see, that's what I
Yeah.
mean. A pause to me, like people are thinking a pause means they have to stop everything they're doing and just sit there or whatever.
Right.
A pause
Yeah.
to me is a break in the routine. That
Yeah.
pause doesn't have to mean meditation or doing nothing or sitting still. And that's why I brought it up because other people would be like me and listen to this.
Yeah.
And the first thing they
Like,
would think of, pause, I don't have time to pause, or, I can't pause, it'll drive me nuts. And that's why I brought that up because that's not what pause means. At least I
yeah,
don't think
right.
so. Pause means a break in the routine or a break in what's going on to take a pause to, like not get stressed out or not make mistakes or not do certain things. And even in making a decision, sometimes you just got to
Mhm.
sit back and pause before making that decision, and
Or take your
so
mind off of it for a bit and come back to it with like a fresh perspective.
correct. That's what I mean by that. It's like
Yeah.
sometimes that's what's needed, or removing yourself from a situation. Okay. So,
Mhm.
and some people can't handle it. Like me, as an example, yesterday I had a scenario where I had to walk away from a situation And my walking away from that situation is my idea of pausing. Okay. Because being in the situation is only getting your heart rate going faster, stressing you out more, getting you angry or getting you depressed or whatever it does to you. That removing yourself from the situation, which is a pause, allows you to chill out and come back. I even say it with, social media. Okay. I or any type of communication, but I say social media because people are so reactive in social media that if somebody says something, they just immediately respond. When it comes to emails, text messages, social media postings, I never immediately respond in those situations. I will sit
Like,
back, take a
yeah.
pause, wait a while, wait till my emotions are not part of it, and then come back to it. With and and then you can respond in a less reactionary way and a more of a proactive way of expressing yourself, opposed to expressing yourself based on reacting to somebody else.
Or like yeah, I love that because that's like the real power of a pause, or that embracing a bit of a because I think another word for pause or stillness is like it's transition. It's from one phase to the next. It's like inhale, exhale. It's we're always in flux, constantly fluctuating. So these pauses are like little mini transitions or allow us. And then when we encounter a situation that creates like triggers us, that is a moment where we can step back and either react maybe from the past, like that's coming from our past conditioning or behavior or some kind of belief structure, that creates this reaction in us. um, and the pause allows maybe potentially for a space to choose a different way, and I think
Mm.
that's what guides us, like
Or
drives
another
us into the
solution.
future. Yeah,
Another
sure, like
solution, because when
yeah.
you don't take that pause, you only see one solution. When you take the pause, then
Mhm.
there's multiple options of a solution.
Yeah, and we can be so ingrained, when it comes to the our neural pathways or our behaviors and our actions, they're such deeply entrenched, they can be because we do it over and over and over again. It can be hard to get out of that. Like a rut, like literally, if we're always taking the same channel and it takes time to forge a new pathway. So I don't know. I know we might all
Even
encounter situations like that and be around people that are in it too.
Well, even
So
in business and sales, okay, like for people that like, "Oh, I'm a business person, so I don't believe in all this stuff." Well, that's a bunch of hooey because perfect
mm,
example, salespeople. There's two things that salespeople are trained about that directly have to do with the pause. One thing salespeople are trained about
mm,
is that there's no such thing as the be back bus. The people that say, "I'll be back," or "Call me back," or uh, any of those things, because what that person is doing is creating a pause, not for necessarily positive purposes, but instead of saying no or yes or something that gives the salesperson a tool, they're putting a pause on it so that they don't have to do it. Okay. And they don't have
mm,
to say no to the salesperson. The
being
other
stuck
side
in
of
the
it,
pause,
say that again.
like being stuck in the pause, like never really moving. Just
Yeah. And then the other thing is we teach, as salespeople, teach salespeople the pregnant pause, which is
right.
basically like if you close a deal, they're taught the first person that speak loses. So the salesperson takes a pause and doesn't say anything. And there's a lot of power in that pause. The
Mm,
pregnant pause is very powerful, especially if you're just communicating with people. When people like, you ever notice you're communicating with people and there'll be a pause before they say it? That's the pregnant pause. And that pregnant pause actually in some ways makes people uncomfortable. In other ways, it causes them to say or do things that maybe they wouldn't have done if there was no pause, good or bad.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm.
Can I drink on the show? Is that okay?
Yeah, of course. You can help yourself. You want some snacks? I mean, it's lunchtime here.
I would like some snacks, but do you like how I matched my shirt to the background?
Yeah, it's a great color.
Yeah, it just
Yeah.
it like I'm the mountain.
Yeah, you are the mountain.
I
I
am the
am that.
mountain. Right, Rebel? I am the
That's
mountain, right?
yes.
Oh my goodness.
Hey, Rebel. I never got to say hello to you before.
Hello, how are you?
Welcome.
What
Good.
do
Thanks
you
for-
pause about, Rebel?
The things you do.
I knew she was going to say that. I was going to say before she answered, I was going to say, anytime I ask her to do a task, she pauses and doesn't react, so that right, Rebel.
I take a moment to process exactly what you're asking for in the time limit that you're asking it to be done to see if I'm capable or wanting to do it.
Yeah. So for Rebel, her pauses are always to think of a way that she's not capable to do it.
That
How
is
to get
not
out
the
of it.
case.
No, I really like
I
that,
don't
Rebel.
get out of it. Most of the time it's a yes anyway, but I like to make sure that it's available for space on the plate,
Yeah, it's a really wise and honest response to that, because some people can ask you things and you might say yes immediately without really considering it, and then that's how you get more on your plate, or that's how you sign up for something that's outside of your wheelhouse, or you can
used to
ask
do
for
that.
help, or really.
Oh yes, I
And
used to
now
be a
that's
yes girl. It used to be yes all the time, no matter what. Even if I was uncomfortable doing it, I used to do it. But then, as I learned, I grew a little bit. I didn't grow up, never will, but I grew a little bit and understood that it's okay to say no.
You know what? I want you to save all that too for tomorrow for the Adventures of Pipe Man during the segment that we talk about relationships.
All right.
Because, you might have to implement that with some of the the people around you. I won't mention who.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a good point too. Maybe you could talk a little, if you have some ideas around the power of the pause in relationships. That could really,
Well, here's a perfect
having a moment. Yeah, to just
here's a
reflect
perfect
before you
thing
answer.
in relationships, and not necessarily romantic, any type of relationship. The pause allows you to learn somebody, because when you're getting to know people, sometimes people are so busy talking that they're not listening. So they want the person to know everything they're all about and know how to be with them, but maybe they're not listening how to be with the other person. And so that pause gives a chance to actually hear what the other person is expressing, saying, and even if they're not saying it, like how many times in relationships do people say they said something and the other person says, no, you didn't? Because sometimes the person may have said something and the other person wasn't paying attention, or the other person was too busy speaking to hear it, or sometimes because you don't have that pause, you don't really understand what somebody's saying. Again, going back to that reactionary thing. If somebody in a relationship says something to you, I think the pause is very necessary before you respond, because how many times do we respond to the wrong statement?
Yeah,
But that
pause
goes
allows
back-
you to get the info. Go ahead, Rebel.
That goes back to somebody can say something, but how you interpret what they say, if you don't,
Well, that's
if
why
the
you have
person
to
saying
pause.
it doesn't say it, no, but if the person says something and someone pauses, they should turn around and say, did you understand what I said? sometimes
maybe they're
it's a good
just
thing to say that.
pausing to process it, and maybe instead of assuming what you said, understand what they said. I do that all the time because there's a lot of times the first reaction when somebody says something is usually the wrong reaction because it's based on what you're interpreting them to say. But if you take a pause, you might not interpret it from your point of view. You might interpret it from their point of view and get exactly the message they were trying to give you.
Yeah, maybe there's extra information there too that needs a little time to percolate out. And I like that, Rebel, when you, yeah, did you understand what I mean by that, or what I meant by that, or what do you think I meant by that?
Well,
Or what?
it is true.
A lot of times people will say something, and especially Southern people will say something, and someone might not understand what we're trying to get across.
Okay,
I'll
so
be the
now you
first
put the
to-
specific of Southern people, then maybe Southern people should speak English better. I'm
We
just
do speak
Yeah,
English better, but other people don't always understand what we're saying, or in
yeah,
general.
exactly, which means you're not speaking the same language as all those other people.
No, we all speak the same English. It's just a matter of intention
Actually,
and
I have to
inflection on the
disagree with
voice.
that. I have to disagree with that because listen, I could have a conversation with Nicole, who's from Canada and speaks English, and she may not understand certain things, or I may not understand certain things. That is, I'm glad you brought that up because that's a very important topic. Why there's a
we're
need
like,
for a pause to understand people, because no, not all English is the same language. Not everything, just like as an example, small example, you guys in the South say, bless your heart. People in the North don't say that. So we have our own assumption of what you mean when you say that. And
Most
you
of the
have
time,
your
that's an
own meaning.
insult.
Exactly. Exactly.
oh my gosh,
It is an
that's
insult. So
funny.
that's what I'm talking about. But that's not what it means in the English language. You guys put your own meaning to it. If you
Well, no,
look,
see, saying bless your heart is better than saying, God, I'd like to bitch slap you right now.
and see, but that's your opinion. In my opinion, no, it'd be better off if you just said what you meant so that people could work things out. Because when you tell people stuff like that, they think that they're doing the right thing and they think that they should keep doing that thing that's making you not comfortable. Okay. If you want to have comfortable relationships, I think that the communication is key, and proper communication. So if you're saying bless your, as an example, since you use that and we use that example, so if you say bless your heart to somebody that doesn't know what you guys are meaning, which there's a lot of people that don't, okay, they're going to think, oh, what a sweet person. This person cares so much about me. And so whatever they did to cause you to say bless your heart, they're going to keep doing because they think it works. It's kind of like, and I hate to bring it up in this show, so I'm not bringing it up in a bad way, the idea of a fake orgasm. Like, that is the dumbest thing ever invented because all you're doing is causing somebody to keep doing the same thing that doesn't work. Okay.
Yeah,
So there needs to be a pause. There needs to be a pause for people to understand what you're really saying. And so, in the same token, if somebody wants to say, because they're a Yankee and they just want to say straight out, F you, I want, punch you in the face. At least you know what they feel, and maybe you can have an open discussion to find out why both of you are feeling that way and rectify it. You can't rectify it by sugarcoating it.
yeah, it gets more to the core, to the heart of it. I think a pause does reflect, like, allow space for that to get a bit closer or more curious. But I mean, it's hard. So it can be hard sometimes to put like all of that into words, and you need the space
Well, that's
to
what you need
figure
to
it out.
pause for. And you need to
Yeah.
pause, talking about the reaction and what she said. Like the pause is so you don't bitch slap them in the face, is basically
Yeah.
what it
You
comes
find
down to.
another solution.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Or maybe that is the solution. I don't know. I mean,
Well,
there's
maybe
so many
the
different scenarios. You've got
maybe
to
the
trial and
bless
error a
your
little bit.
heart is the pause.
Yeah, maybe. Hey. Yeah, that's right.
And it gives the Yankee enough time to tell them what they really think.
To run.
I don't remember any Yankees running from Southerners, just saying.
Oh, we ain't
But
going there on this show.
yeah, that's for another time and another place. Okay. See,
Oh
you
my
you
goodness.
you beautiful people in Canada, you think we're the United States of America. Here you have proof, right here and now. We speak
The
different
divided states
languages.
of, yes.
Well, we speak different languages. We have different upbringings. I mean, in all reality, okay, I say it all the time. When somebody says, oh, they're uneducated or they're ignorant because somebody thinks differently, I always say maybe they just were brought up in a different place as you, had different upbringing than you, had different friends than you, had different experiences than you. You could give a whole laundry list. Okay. And so in Rebel's case, she has the lifelong experience of being a Southerner. So those things that are normal to Southerners and normal communication, that's what you're brought up with. Me as a Yankee, I may look at some of that stuff as being ridiculous or not agree with it. That doesn't mean I'm right and they're wrong. It means we had different influences in our life and different things are going on. And I think both are right. There is no wrong. You know, if you're not purposely trying to hurt people, there is no wrong, which is why you need a pause. So people of different backgrounds, different influences, different environmental factors can communicate and understand each other. Because if there's no pause and they communicate in their own way, I think that's what causes a division. I think maybe, since we were talking about United States of America, maybe if the whole country just took a pause, maybe they might see some other things that are going on opposed to what they think is going on. And I don't mean that conspiracy wise. I mean the fact of, you know, maybe you would understand why the other side thinks a certain way or why they do certain things, or maybe you would just understand that maybe we shouldn't have two sides and maybe they're all on the same team, meaning the politicians, and it ain't ours, and maybe we should combine forces together and become a united front. And I think that only happens from a pause, and sometimes a pause is, as example, a civil war. I think a civil war in this country was a pause. There's people nowadays that are calling for another civil war. Why are they calling for that? My best bro of life, who passed away in September, he used to say, and he was definitely very much a liberal, and he used to say in the very end, he was like, screw it, just destroy the whole place and start over. And what he really meant by that was a metaphor. He actually believed there should have been a civil war because we're so divided and so broken in so many ways right now that maybe that's the pause we need.
But we didn't learn from other ones. The only time everybody ever bands together is a tragedy, like 9/11.
Or a common enemy.
They did not care what was somebody. You don't care what you were. If you was trying to get out of there, somebody was going to give you a helping hand. And everybody seemed to care at that point. But the rest of the time, we never learned. If there's no tragedy that everybody can group together to the one cause, we all still go back to that.
The common tragedy
differences.
doesn't work either, because we had 9/11 and it lasted a few months till we went back to normal.
But that's what I'm saying.
It's like also COVID
only in that
was
moment.
like that too, like the lockdown stuff.
Oh,
It's like
yeah.
2 weeks. Everyone was like, yeah, helping hands, and then we were all like avoiding each other like the plague.
And it's going on now. It's so
And
funny.
still, yeah.
I was watching a Tony Robbins video this morning. I was absolutely in shock, because I am absolutely in shock. And a lot of people that were my mentors all my life, that they had I didn't realize they had such extreme values because we didn't really show it. And now people are showing it. But his guest said something about, Tony was talking about some saying, and he goes, you know who said that? And I forget what the exact sentence was, but he said, Hitler. And, oh, look, she's a ghost now, Rebel. She took a pause from the show. We were annoying her, and she took a pause from the show.
I'm sorry. I've got a special surprise for us.
Ooh. Well, hold 1 second. for that. I'll finish what I said, and then we'll introduce the special surprise.
Okay.
And there she is. But yeah, I was so shocked.
Can't hear you.
And I was so shocked because I was watching this thing, and his guest said something when he said Hitler, and then his guest was like, "You mean like Dr. Fauci?" So they compared Dr. Fauci to Hitler, and whether true, not true, I mean, that stuff is getting ridiculous, and that's why we're divided, and that's why we need a pause, because we don't need to keep hammering on stuff and nobody really knows and stuff like. And then Tony Robbins, surprising to me, like, "Oh, I agree with you 100%, brother." Blah, blah. I've never heard him get political, Tony Robbins, in 40 years of listening to him. So we've become to a point now that even the solid citizens that are preaching, good things are now preaching bad things, because this is why we need to pause, so that everybody can regroup and go back to being human beings instead of a political party. Because everybody's a political party now. They're not a human being. They're not anything else. And it's not just the United States. It's everywhere. You guys have it in Canada. It's happening in Europe and Australia. When I was in Bali, I was talking to Australians, and they're like, "Yeah, we're following your lead now." The whole world is following this lead of division, hating each other, being nasty to each other. I had somebody comment on one of my interviews with a legendary drummer that was so nasty that I respond back. I'm like, "I don't get the hate. What's with the hate? Like, so what? If you don't agree with something, why you have to hate on somebody?" That's why we need a big pause in the whole world. We need a big pause so we can all get some sanity back, because I think we've gotten a little nutso, and this is way beyond what we were talking about before, meaning if we had a little bit of a pause, maybe we could the whole world could unite, and we could have things like, dare I say it, global peace or something like that, Maybe if we sat down with each other and had conversations. That's what I learned in Denmark. I went to Denmark and there were 8 of us in a room, all different religions, all different political beliefs, all different countries. And the one thing that was wonderful about it is nobody argued, nobody attacked. We all just had different opinions, that had a conversation, learned from each other. That's a pause. And now you can introduce our guests. Now that I got up my soapbox.
Well, hi, I'm Melanie.
Hi.
Hi. I agree with you. We need to start talking at a grassroots level to our neighbors. And have the pause of political whatever, but actually talk to them as humans, one-on-one. Because you know what? We break down all those barriers. And we actually talk to them as human to human with that compassion and, unconditional love for humans, as opposed to and the keyboard warriors and all of that. So we need to do that more.
Yeah. And you weren't here before, but basically this related to the fact of, like, even if you get an argument with your friend, family member, or whatever, sometimes you just need a pause. And I was saying about an experience I had yesterday where I walked away, and that walking away wasn't leaving. It was taking a pause, removing myself from the situation, clearing my head so I can go back and think freshly. Because when you're not in that pause, you say and do things that are reactionary, opposed to maybe even what you really believe, or even what sometimes in those situations, I find even myself doing things that are uncharacteristic to me, which is why you need a pause so you could just go back to being you.
Yeah, and take a few breaths, and we're not in that. I mean, we live in sympathetic, right? We don't live in our parasympathetic. And especially in the global situation that we're in right now, I'm talking globally like you just were, that pause is so important to not do a fight, flight, right? Or freeze, just to gather your senses and chill. And I don't know if you guys talked about cancel, but you don't have to write off all your friends because you disagree on something.
Oh,
Like,
No, we did not talk about
No, we
that, and
didn't.
that one
Yeah.
bothers me. Like,
me too.
well,
Yeah.
how about this? Okay, I don't know if you females experience it, but me as a male going on online dating sites, it actually makes me like so turned off that almost every woman, the first line of their profile is their political belief. Like, if you're a Trumper, swipe left. If you're a Brandon guy, swipe left. And like, why should that be the first thing in your profile? Like, especially I grew up in a time you don't talk politics or religion. And yes, in a relationship, it would be important to be on the same page. I don't think that page needs to be the cover of the book. Okay.
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
the point. And that's all they make. That's the important thing. Maybe find out why somebody is. That's something I always say. Find out why they are, because there's multiple reasons. As an example, one of my brothers voted for Trump both times, not because he likes Trump, not because he dislikes anybody else, but because he's in the financial business. And if Biden became president, they said they were going to enact a certain law that would affect his business that he's been in for 40 years, where his income would drop in half immediately. So somebody like that, of course, is going to vote for the opposing party, not for any other reason but the livelihood of themselves and their family. Doesn't mean they believe in those things. And I think that's what we need to find out. It's not important either finding out the surface stuff. Find out why somebody believes what they believe, no matter what it is. It doesn't have to do with politics. It can have to do with anything, because everybody has, as I said before, different upbringings, different geographical locations, different influences, friends, family, environmental factors that form their beliefs that maybe are not necessarily what you think. We've made it so black and white. No matter what you believe in, it has to be extreme this way or extreme that way. It doesn't matter what it is. It's like if somebody said, and social media, the whole social media argument, this is an orange. Well, actually, it's not an orange. It's this, and blah, blah. That's where we need to pause. We need to pause to understand each other and understand why we're saying the things we do, believe the things we do, and maybe we'll get a different perspective. I've even had the luck of, and I'll say luck, I'm a Jew, had the luck of having a conversation with a neo-Nazi and finding out why he hated me so much without knowing me. And that was very educational, because what I found out is it was just his upbringing, where he was, the people he was surrounded with that fed him with a whole bunch of stuff that he never experienced a Jew in his life. So he had nothing that could say, no, that's not true. And then and this sounds funny, but it is true. When he noticed I didn't have horns coming out of my head, it made him question. And like, because that is one of the things that neo-Nazis are taught, stuff like that, because they're secluded in their own little area sometimes, that it's very believable, just like you say things about people from other countries. I've had that experience as an American when I started to travel. I was like, what was everybody talking about? I'm not experiencing what they said. And a lot of what was said is like, don't go anywhere out there in the world. It's dangerous. Nobody's like the United States and America, and blah, 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 blah. And, great country, but so is Canada. So is every country in Europe, in their own way. And we just need to learn about each other and take a pause.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to add?
Well, we had the same thing when we went to China.
Yeah, we were just talking about
this and how still to this day people are absolutely scared to go to China, all of it. And it's because no one does. And when they go, they're blown away at how awesome and like humans, the essence of humans, we're all the same. We actually all want exactly the same thing globally. But unfortunately, we get politics and religion in there, and it just tears those beautiful human walls. Like, I guess it creates human walls instead of
like it's like the masks. That's like the Wizard of Oz, like the
Yeah.
grand and
Well,
powerful
add the motive.
wizard. You know, like it's like yeah. I was
Yeah.
just gonna say you were talking, and it's like everybody has to find out what someone's motivation is, or what their motive is, where they're coming from. Like, what is it that they want? And maybe moving forward, it's like, oh yeah, we actually have a lot of similarities. Maybe we can strive towards something more cohesive like that. Still be different and diverse. That's fine. Because also we have different, like, you know, from the south to the north, like even within the US, of course it's different, and we have different attitudes because we're different environments, exposed to different things. It's like northern, southern India are very different places. Like one is like in your face, like right there. Well, you probably won't go back because it's intense, but they've been invaded time and time again, you know, and it's like they're used to that. But southern India is like chill, laid back. They've never been invaded. They're like
just comparatively, it definitely works that
just
way.
one example. Yeah, but like,
well,
yeah.
look at
All over the
North
world,
Korea
though.
and South Korea. North Korea
Yeah.
and South Korea too. Same thing.
Okay, did I cut you off?
Sorry.
Did I cut somebody off? Yeah.
You didn't cut anybody off, but
we're
we
gonna
only
get cut
have
off.
4 minutes left.
Yeah. I know. What a cluster this one is. Sorry, well, it's perfectly imperfect, just like life. And that's the thing. That's like also the language of healing. Healing is not a uniform journey. Time is not a uniform thing. Relationships are not uniform. They take work and effort and curiosity and pauses and questions and explorations and what else?
Compassion, understanding,
Yeah.
unconditional love.
Well, we went back to that motive and talking about that motive thing before. Okay. So what is the motive when somebody says something to you? Like, I think people don't think of that. They don't think of like, what is that person's motive to try to convince you to believe what they believe? And maybe it's a good motive. I'm not saying it has to be a bad motive, but unless you take that pause to kind of figure out what their motive is, you can't really analyze it the proper way. You know, just like we were talking about, okay, what's the motive of making people think that, you know, you shouldn't go to China or you shouldn't go to Europe or you know, there's a reason for that. What's the motive for anything, you know, anything that's going on? Politically, what's the motive? The motive to me politically right now is to keep people divided so the powers that be on the same team that's not mine can get things done, you know. And what would be the motive of us taking a pause, not listening to these people and banding together? I think it would make a better world for the whole human race, because we are one race, one people, the human race. And all this stuff with male against female, straight against not straight, black versus white, Hispanic versus American. You could go on and on with the list of the separation that we're being fed these days. If we just paused, maybe we would see we all bleed the same. And we, like you said, going back to what you said, we all want the same thing generally. And all we are doing by not pausing is not getting what we want. If we pause, then we can all learn from each other, understand each other, love each other, and create the world that we want instead of the world they're creating for us.
Hear, hear.
Wow.
Yep. 100%. So
And that-
let's change it, man.
There. Now, Nicole, you have to wrap up the show.
Okay, I was just thinking back to the mountain. You are the mountain, you know, you're like blending in with the mountain. We are all the same, just different hues. Your yellow ochre amongst the backdrop, amazing. Sorry.
I have the sun shining on me over the mountaintop. That's what created this color.
Yeah, looks great. I don't know what else to add. I mean, that's great.
Just be kind.
Yeah,
Spread some kindness out there.
You might also
There you
want
go.
to add that they can watch your show and listen to your show every week, Tuesdays, 2 p.m. Eastern Time on W4WN Radio, W4WN.com. If they missed any part of this show, they can see it again on different YouTube channels, Facebook, Twitch, LinkedIn, all kinds of places. But you can also catch the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts: iHeart, Pandora, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple, YouTube Music, and about 100 others. So just look for The Language of Healing. And then, of course, you can reach out to Nicole for some real healing and some coaching. And so, Nicole, why don't you tell them how they can connect to you on socials, on email, web, whatever you want to tell them. If you want to give them your private phone number, do that.
Oh, no.
But I don't recommend. But I don't recommend it.
For now, you can find me through The Language of Healing. I'm here. I'm on the back end as well. And Instagram, Facebook at NicoleFortinHealing.com, or no, Nicole Fortin Healing, .ca or.
And stay tuned, because very, 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 very soon.
Find me if you can. That's the challenge.
Do what if you can?
Find me if you can.
Oh yeah, find her if you can.
Yeah.
It's not easy. Find
Instagram, Facebook, The Language of Healing.
But I tell you what will be easy.
Healing. Find the Pipe Man, and you can find me through the Pipe Man, because he's everywhere. And
I'll tell you what'll be easy.
Co-host here.
Listen, what'll be easy is in a few days, all they have to do is go to the Language of Healing podcast, and they can catch all the video and the audio shows right there, and links to Nicole and links to the Language of Healing, and lots of good stuff on the horizon. So listen, until then, they need to leave, because you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. We're done. So why don't you give the last words, Nicole?
All right. Thanks so much for joining, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for Melanie. Oh yeah. Do you want to leave your contact real quick?
Yes.
No,
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
You can find me on the giant webs at Auspicious Phoenix Acupuncture.
Auspicious Phoenix Acupuncture. Yes. .com.
Wow.
All right.
And why are we suspicious?
Auspicious.
Oh, auspicious. See, I had to correct that, because I heard the other. So in case others, but yeah,
okay.
She is a badass. So connect with her too.
Yeah.
Don't connect with me, because not so much. But these two women,
pretty badass.
These two women, they are the most incredible people on this show ever.
On this show. What about Rebel? Rebel's probably also very incredible.
Rebel is very incredible at rolling the outro. That's what she's incredible at.
I know it's probably that time now. Okay, thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. Look forward to seeing you next time.
Wow, what a show today. And the journey does not stop here. Come travel the world with Nicole every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, as together we become more fluent in the language of healing on W4WN Radio and Talk 4 TV. See you next week.
Yeah.